This is Film Tag.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Oh, I don't know if it's on, but I like it.
You know, we're sitting here like a couple of regular fellas. We're going to make film history.
Can you say that again? Just the way you said it.
Poor baby is starting to lose their hair.
They won't know what they're looking at or why they like it, but they'll know they want it.
It's not real time, it's showtime. Are you guys ready?
Hey there, everyone, and welcome in to episode 212 of Film Tank. Alex Diekman here, along with Nick Cheney,
Hey.
Toussaint Egan,
Hi.
and Anna Bodazadu.
Hello.
Hi. Woo.
Woo. Thank you for welcoming me back. It's always a great time being here.
Of course, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I was telling you guys earlier that I was listening to our Jingle All the Way episode from earlier this year, and I was listening for like the first 25 minutes earlier this morning, and Anna mentions 20 minutes in, she's like, "Hi, I'm here. You forgot to mention me." And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
so."
I'm sorry that I said that.
Oh, no. It's totally
That's the host
acceptable.
duties.
I was going to say, I probably should have, maybe done that. So
It's okay.
It's okay.
I'm surprised you left that in the episode.
Well, if I hadn't, then
It'd be kind of weird.
it would have just continued on as if nothing happened.
That's
and
true.
Yeah.
I should have.
It would have just
so.
been some woman's voice, and then
Yes,
Yeah.
it would have been myself, you, and Nick talking about Rami Malek for 15 minutes, and then be like, "Oh, by the way, Anna's on the episode." So
that was a fun episode.
it was. That's a
Yeah.
fun little movie.
Yes, it sure is.
Speaking of Christmas films, we are going to talk about one that kind of falls in that category today, and falls in the category of some other kind of filmmaking.
So vague.
Yeah.
It could be a Christmas film. It could be, I don't know, a found footage horror film. We don't know. There's a lot of mileage in this. I don't know.
Guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
That film is a holiday... It's not a classic. It's a holiday film called Love Actually.
Oh, it's a classic in the sense that it came and it's here to stay, and people
love it.
still sharing gifs of it every day of the week, and then talking about it every December.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, classic or staple, take your pick, but it's one of those.
It's known.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So the film was released in 2003 and was written and directed by Richard Curtis, who's done quite a bit of things, including Notting Hill, Four Weddings and a Funeral. He did a bunch of stuff with Mr. Bean, hence why Rowan Atkinson is here. Also wrote the screenplay for the Bridget Jones Diary movies.
Yeah, so you're naming almost all of his worst things, but technically on television, before Mr. Bean, he partnered with Rowan Atkinson and the likes of Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry and a lot of great people for the show Blackadder, which is one of the funniest pieces of media and also one of the bleakest, and it blows my mind that that guy wrote that and this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, Nick, maybe he just wanted to be happy. I'm just saying.
What?
The look on Nick's face.
I don't have a response to
He
that.
was just like, get that shit out of here. Like, nah, I'm not touching that.
Fair enough.
Oh, my lord.
So in addition to Richard Curtis being the writer and director of this film, this stars Hugh Grant as the Prime Minister. Also features Liam Neeson, Laura Linney, Bill Nighy, Colin Firth, Emma Thompson, Martin Freeman, Joanna Page, Chiwetel
What's it for?
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Okay.
Chitaway?
Yeah, it was,
Chitaway?
yep. Chitaway.
Oh, boy.
Chitaway.
Shitaway.
Oh my
And
God.
Chitaway, yep. Andrew Lincoln, who most people would know from The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Keira Knightley in a very early role for her.
Yeah, Phantom Menace.
Also, this was no, this was before Bend It Like Beckham.
Those are some noises.
Yeah, I'm
No!
sorry. Sorry.
No, that was great.
I was trying to think. Bend It Like Beckham
Bend It
is
Beckham.
Bend It Like
Bend
Beckham,
It Beckham.
was
Bend
04.
it, Beckham!
That's right. That sounds like Stretch Armstrong. Bend and Beckham.
Ugh,
What?
nothing.
Okay. Also showing up in this film are Billy Bob Thornton, Rodrigo Santoro, Alan Rickman, and a young appearance by Thomas Brody Sangster, who was in the Maze Runner movies that most
right.
people haven't seen.
And he's only 4 years younger than Keira Knightley.
Yeah, which is
It's just a creepy visualization
It is,
in this
isn't
movie.
it? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not saying I don't understand how age works, but
They're both anomalies. She looked very much older for her age, and he looked exceptionally younger for his age. So
Yeah, it's very much like somebody like Macaulay Culkin being like 14 or whatever during Home Alone. Everyone's like, oh, he's a little kid. It's like, not really, though.
Yeah.
So Love Actually surrounds the lives of 8 very different couples that are dealing with their love lives in various loosely interrelated tales, all set in a frantic month before Christmas in London. So, giving a little background here, I will say that I've seen this quite a few times, and I actually do enjoy this film. But really, this came up because, I don't know, like a month and a half or 2 months ago, I was randomly talking about this film with Nick, and he is not a fan. So,
surprise, surprise.
oh, wow, shaming. I like it. So,
it only makes me stronger.
more than anything, I was just intrigued to get different viewpoints on this, because sometimes it's fun to hear people who have vastly different views on something. But at the same time,
Are we going to have vastly different views?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
I think this movie's pretty good, and you do not. So
Yep.
we could just leave it at that.
Word.
Do you want me to go first? Is that where this
Sure.
is going?
Unless you don't want to.
No,
that's
I mean, I
fine.
will.
Yeah, no, go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's gonna consult
Are you
my
coming
notes.
for my brand? No, I'm kidding.
Yep.
I'm kidding. That was a ridiculous thing.
I have ranked the 10 storylines. I counted 10.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's really more like 9, because 2 of them kind of can be lumped together, but I'll explain why I did that in a minute, or didn't do that. So I'm going to open my opening thoughts with a ranking from worst to best storyline. And I pretty much don't know any of these characters' names, except for a few. So counting down from number 10 to number 1.
How many times have you seen this film?
Oh, like 4 or 5 times.
Okay,
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
My mother loves this movie. And here we go. Okay, the worst, number 10, is Colin the Sex God. Number 9, I feel like I'm David Letterman. Number 9 is Laura Linney and her brother. Number 8 is Colin Firth. Number 7, no wait, yeah, that's number 8, but then number 7 is Hugh Grant, the Prime Minister. Number 6 is Andrew Lincoln's character. Here we go. 5 and 4 is what I would call Liam Neeson and the little boy.
Okay.
Technically, they're kind of a pair, but if Liam Neeson didn't technically get a resolution of the model, which I'll talk about later, then he wouldn't have his own storyline, but he kind of does. Number 3 is Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson. Number 2 is Bill Nighy and the manager. Number 1 is the sex body doubles. So out of the storylines that I just mentioned, the first 2, I'll say the first 3 are good. The sex body doubles, I've already forgotten, what was number 2?
Bill Nighy?
Bill Nighy and his platonic love for his manager. and the Alan Rickman Emma Thompson marriage. There is good notes in all three of those stories. Here's where the film ultimately fails, though, and it even ruins whatever good grace that some of the storylines have. This movie hates women. There is not a single female character in this movie that has any sort of agency or is not a victim of a man's doing in some kind. Even the ones that are given quote-unquote victories are given at the expense of when the man allows it. Whether you take Hugh Grant's secretary, so we're meant to think that a happy ending for her is that her boss fired her because he had too big of an erection, but it's completely okay because also she has to apologize for the President of the United States of America hitting on her and having the audacity to do that behind closed doors. But she's not a slut because she would never have sex with the President of the United States of America. Then we have Laura Linney. Okay, so she's just an unlucky in love, because she's got her career. But we are meant to essentially say that she does not deserve happiness, and we should also kind of resent her brother for having a mental handicap that is somehow taking over her life, because the scenes that play out where she could have like a quote-unquote normal life with Carl, the way that that's written is really icky. That essentially says that she is being weighed down by her brother, despite the fact that she's not taking care of him. I mean, it goes to great lengths to basically point out that he's been put in a home and everything. So I don't know where the dramatic tension Richard Curtis thinks is happening in there, but if anything, it is all completely put upon, and I think she needs to go see a therapist before she could actually be in a relationship with someone, except we're meant to basically take her ending as a happy ending because she learned that, it's okay to devote her entire life to her mentally handicapped brother. She doesn't need love as badly as he needs her. Which is weird. The Colin Firth storyline is awful because you have two people. First of all, she's weirdly sexualized in her. Colin Firth literally, quote unquote, falls in love with her because he sees that she has a tramp stamp as the camera lingers on her blue cotton bottoms. And I just don't know what to make of that because he's upset with his wife and his brother, right? Because they were cheating, okay. But then he moves over to wherever he goes. I can't even remember, whatever. But then he's basically lusting over a girl who he can't even communicate with, which I guess is a weird way of saying that, love. I think Richard Curtis is going for, love is a universal language, but it reads more consent doesn't have to be given if you can't understand each other. And not to mention, that storyline would maybe actually take it home and be okay if it wasn't completely ruined by the entire ending of that, where all the jokes are fat-shaming, literally selling off the girl as his bride, and so many other really random jokes that are all so concentrated to that cathartic moment, or at least what should be. Liam Neeson is an unfortunate storyline because it happened and predated the real-life tragedy that Liam Neeson's, the real person, actually suffered from. So I don't think that's necessarily a hindrance on the movie, but it's a thing that hangs over the movie and will from now on, and that's just kind of weird and unfortunate. But the fact that he's going to use his grieving process to try to help his stepson, who's 10 years old, get laid, is not as cute as the movie thinks it is. And well, I'll go back to that in one more moment. And hold on, let me just think. Did I miss? I'm sure I did, but let me make sure I got here. Before I get to that one. Okay, so getting to the three that I like, and then I'll pass it off. Bill Nighy, I actually think that that's probably maybe the best fleshed out storyline, not because it has the most nuance or details, but, you know, the thesis, which is said in the half title, it's kind of weird that there's an actual title card with a full phrase, but the title is only the first two words, whatever, of love actually is all around, which... Well, I'll say that for a minute. Hold on. But love actually is all around for the thesis to be that love can come in different forms or whatever. Except in Bill Nighy's storyline, it seems like love only comes in one form, and that's at the victimization of women everywhere and at the horny expense of men's dicks. Bill Nighy's storyline is the only one that actually transcends the idea that love can be and take different shapes, whether it's platonic or, romantic, consensual, whatever, between men, between women, whatever you call it. Like, there is an actual undercurrent of what love can be there that's missing from most of the other storylines. The sex body doubles, I actually think is a cute storyline. There's literally nothing wrong with it. Everything that's happening there has no icky connotations, and they just happen to have this kind of ridiculously crude day
meet
job.
Cute.
Yeah, meet cute, day job. And what's great is that it actually takes the rom-com cliche and puts it on its head, because these two people who literally work for a living as intimacy body doubles, when they go to have their big moment on the staircase, they're hesitant. And it's like even they kind of have these jitters about using their bodies and inhabiting the same shared romantic space. And like that completely works. And it's adorable, but unfortunately that's like a 2-minute sequence in an entire movie, and so is Bill Nighy. Now, Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman is actually a good storyline, I give it that, and Emma Thompson does have the best scene in the entire movie, for me at least, which is when she finds the present that's not meant for her, and she puts it all together. The problem is, in the context of the whole, the strongest storyline is also woven into the film's biggest problem, which is that women have to suffer in love, because she, while she handles it like a pro, she shouldn't have to. And the idea that she's going to go on and basically be a dutiful wife and a good mother. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen in real life. Obviously it does. But we're watching, quote-unquote, a Christmas movie where love is all around. That's not love. I mean, I'm just saying, like, she didn't actually give him, I would say, a forgiveness, which she doesn't have to. And if she didn't, then that means they are now stuck in a loveless marriage. Now, I do think in the final scene between them, they're trying to hint at the idea that she's going to come back around. But the span of time, the 1 month later, doesn't track with anything that would make any realistic sense. So for her to basically... Like, who finds that storyline fulfilling in the midst of this rom-com? I think it's a dramatically, inherently fascinating storyline that has good acting in it. But what is the purpose of that storyline in this larger tapestry, other than Richard Curtis to say, oh, look, not everything's pretty? It's like, okay, yes, but why are you making the women suffer, and why are you letting the men off so easily that the denouement rings so hollow, and especially when you are putting them up against quote-unquote real Heathrow airports, family gatherings? It's like, well, so we can project whatever we want to onto these people that were filmed, and they're just normal people actually, but you're putting them now side by side by these real... I don't think anyone wants to be put side by side by Alan Rickman, the fucking cuckold asshole person, who pretty much destroyed his wife's, I would say, happiness in her marriage. Like, she may be able to repair it herself, but everything she says, as far as, like, you're not a fool, you made a fool out of me, like, that's extremely depressing in a way that even I'm uncomfortable with, and I love depressing things, in a movie like this, because I don't think it actually earns it. I think it does in its acting and in the way it went about it when it comes to conveying a universal truth about sometimes the broken connections that love can go through. But I don't think it did anything with it, and I definitely don't think it stands with these other storylines, even in a mosaic way, where you could say, well, this is this version, this is that version. So before I pass it off, I would just say even its strengths are essentially marred by the fact that none of this is thought through except by a guy with a dick who basically wants that to be known. And it all comes down to the title. Literally, Love Actually sounds like the mansplaining version of the definition of love. Well, Love Actually, it's just fucking insufferable. And none of these characters, none of the male characters deserve happiness. They all deserve to die alone. And all these female characters are... I just don't understand why people find this movie to be romantic. Like, that's a big thing. That's why some people like this movie. So I would like to hear as to what would actually speak to people. And, I can certainly say that I've never, whatever, like maybe I've never experienced true love. And gotta tell you, Love Actually makes me never want to.
Just so everyone at home can know, Toussaint literally has his hand raised right now.
Yes.
I want to take the torch and talk, but I want to ask you because there is one storyline that I think you did not cover.
Okay, yes.
And it's the Andrew Lincoln,
yeah,
and Keira Knightley one.
That one is a weird one because of the fact that, once again, it's
they never talk to each other.
They don't.
It's this.
That one is on the cusp of almost being the man suffers, but he doesn't. Because technically speaking, he's put in this impossible situation, and he is rewarded for actually doing the wrong thing. And it is through his own inner strength, because the woman finally gave him what he wanted, which is, I think he was just lusting after her, to be honest. So after she does that, which is a weird thing to reward someone for, while your new husband is sitting right there in the living room, it's only after that then he is able to pull himself. Why is he able to move on from her, and Laura Linney isn't able to set up personal boundaries between her private life and taking care of her brother? Why does only he have the strength after getting his cute little kiss from 17-year-old Keira Knightley? What is so magical about it after he is telling her... And also, what is romantic in a man showing up your door and saying, shh?
Just tell him it's carolers.
Yeah, so...
Don't talk.
Here's the thing.
Don't talk.
Here's the thing about that. So the just tell him it's carolers thing is creepy enough, but him having a stereo to then play carolers after that, like, he put a lot of thought into that.
He sure did.
Yeah.
Not in a cute way, but in a
kind of
sociopathic
kind of
That's
way.
pretty much the MO for all the characters in this movie.
Yeah. So I will take the torch. Thank you, Nick. Those were very...
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, continue.
But because I just have to mention...
Yes.
And also remember that this movie wants you so badly on its side that it name drops 9/11 in its opening plea for love. Sorry, continue.
That is a very good point.
Nick went through all that, and he didn't even go into detail about Colin. So that's
we'll circle back to that.
Thank you,
Nick. Those were very strong, emphatic opening arguments.
What? You a moderator for a debate? Thank you, Nick.
I feel like I am.
Strong remarks.
So this is my first time having ever watched Love Actually. Mm-hmm. I did not know anything about Love Actually. Mm-hmm. Before that, all I knew is that it was a rom-com. Rom-com's not my, it's not my genre of choice. But, I'm open to one once in a while. Mm-hmm. This rom-com...
I think this was a rom-drom.
This utterly shattered me. I am so flabbergasted. I am dumbfounded by this film. I cannot believe that this film was made.
Really?
Yeah. I like it. It's. I feel like I just don't exist on the same wavelength as this film. It comes from some alternate dimension where this shit is okay, and I'm trying to just like negotiate that.
Hey, can I ask a serious? How many films from this era have you watched recently?
From this era? From 2003?
From like early 2000s, late 90s.
Not in a while.
Okay.
Not in a while. But maybe I need to like go back and like rewatch them because
I'm not saying that they are all like this. In any way.
But it was definitely a different time. I get that.
But
which is so weird because that's only 16 years ago.
Yeah,
things have changed.
That's like one Keira Knightley in this movie.
Okay.
Not even one full Thomas Brody.
Really quickly, it's not a rom-com, but a year and a half or so ago, I forced Nick to watch the movie Can't Hardly Wait, which is from the late 90s.
Yeah, that's a teen movie, though.
Yeah.
It is.
And there are tropes in teen movie that are easier to palate when grown adults are grown adults are doing it.
Yeah.
Even so, still a lot of the same issues exist in that film and in a lot of films from this era, I think.
Yeah.
So
I haven't watched a lot of films from the early aughts in a while, and if I were to go back, like they would probably not be from my palate. A lot of these, like not like the really, really good films. I'm talking about, more like the general mainstream stuff that just like comes out in a I spent the majority of this film trying to
With your hand down your pants.
nail down what it was that I felt from any given scene, from any given character, and the through line through all of them was either discomfort or frustration. Sometimes outright fear, because like it felt like there's got to be a heel twist. This guy is not.
Yeah, you kept thinking that like almost every plot line was gonna end like way worse than it did.
Oh yeah, like it just didn't add up to me. It just didn't add up. Like
which would actually definitely have benefited the film if that was the case.
Yeah, I was just like, this guy is going to sell out his flat so that he can take a trip to America because British girls don't like to have a laugh, so he's going to go to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah, he's gonna go to Wisconsin, and he's gonna go to any random bar, and he's gonna shack up with whatever cute girls happen to be in that bar. And I'm just like, he should have definitely lost like a couple of organs. Like that doesn't add up in any. But it adds up here, and I'm just bewildered and kind of like aghast at that.
And he's able to bring them back like a souvenir.
Man, I don't like that.
Yeah, and also too, showing this film's age, the big reveal is that Shannon Elizabeth is the friend that he's
and Denise Richards.
Yeah,
Denise Richards.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It feels like the rom-com equivalent of Crash. In that I feel like there's all these different like, and Crash came out a year after this. I remember that, but that feels like the most apt way to describe it. In that there's all these different plot lines that are all meant to converge at some point, and they all crash into one another.
Hey,
but they're all kind of horrible, and I don't like it. It makes me feel awful thinking about it, and it feels emotionally manipulative and weird, and it just, kind of creeps me out, to be honest. I don't think I'm going to be watching this film again anytime soon, but those are my opening thoughts, and we'll still navigate this. So I want to pass this off to somebody. You want to go?
I'll take the talking stick.
That sounds great. Yeah. Thank you.
We should literally get a talking stick because I mentioned the baton quite often on here, and we should have one. Sure. It would be a good way to discourage talking over other people.
It really would.
That really would. You know what? I agree.
Like summer camp.
Aww.
You ever seen Sleepaway Camp?
No, but I would like to because I've heard it mentioned on this very podcast.
Great movie.
It's a great movie.
I got to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Tom Baldies.
Okay. This was also my first viewing of Love Actually, like Toussaint. I knew it was a rom-com, and I've seen this in GIF form many a time. I think the most famous one to me is when Andrew Lincoln holds up that sign that says, "To me, you're perfect."
I mean, that is still relevant. Unfortunately, Boris Johnson just did a parody of that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like a week ago.
Yeah.
And it's...
SNL did it with Hillary Would Have Won. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's that certainly, I think, helps, like, solidify this movie as being iconic. So, this movie attacked me as a woman because too many times it made me go, even though I know there were so many problems with it, very much like Toussaint and Nick have already pointed out. Some issues that I had in particular were, I think, large age differences are very gross, and we see that often in here, but I feel like Richard Curtis, when he writes and directs, his justification is always like, but it's in the name of love. And you can just see that behind, like, most decisions that he makes. I am surprised he did also direct Four Weddings and a Funeral, because I think that is supremely better than this, although that also has its own set of problems. But with this film, I did like it, and yet there was so much for me to just not like. Like, there were... how do I even put this into words? On the surface, the Colin Firth storyline is cute, but at the same time, all the setup was not very cute for that. Not cute at all. I'm just so conflicted with this because I think rom-coms can be done so well, and yet the fact that this is a classic is just like... But look at all of the things that are wrong, you know? So I couldn't believe the things that were in this film that just made me so uncomfortable, including all of the fat shaming, which in England, apparently the definition is you just have a round symmetrical face. That's what I gathered. And I don't know. I feel like a repeat viewing won't really be necessary. This film is wild, and and some things are good and some things are not. I feel like most things are just not good, unfortunately. Yeah. So those are my opening thoughts. What do you think, Alex?
Take a deep breath.
So, I still kind of like this movie. I will say that as when myself and Nick talked about this a month and a half ago, very aware of all of the issues that are surrounded in this film. And I don't necessarily think that me liking this film means that I don't care about
it doesn't mean you're co-signing any of that.
Alex doesn't care about black people.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's fine.
Oh, my God.
And I guess that is not necessarily me trying to explain my case.
Right.
But I just kind of wanted to make sure I was making it clear that I'm not trying to argue for this film because I don't think that women should be thought of not as objects, or should not be fat shamed, or should not be used as solely plot devices to move forward
afterthoughts in their own story.
Yeah. I will say this. I do think that this film is very much a product of that time. And I think a lot of things in this film are present in films in that era as well. And I'm not going to necessarily say that every filmmaker was doing that, because that's definitely not the case. But in terms of acceptance in pop culture, I think that era allowed for, and especially in the mainstream, allowed for a lot of these same themes to be present in terms of the main storyline that goes through. And that does not make them right, and that does not mean that it's a good film because of that. But I think something that's really really kind of difficult to jive with for me is that every time I watch this film, I still think this film has a lot of very funny moments, and I think it has a lot of enjoyable moments, and I think that I find it interesting when things happen between a lot of these characters and the way that their storylines weave throughout. Everything that happens really with Alan Rickman's character, just watching that progress is very just peculiar to watch his thought-provoking thing happen, because he's this white man who thinks that, he's doing good by buying her this CD because he'll remember that and he will show her the story, when in fact he really has no clue what is happening in his marriage and everything that's going on with his partner. And it's just that is one example, and then you have the rest of the film as it plays out. And again, I'm thinking that a lot of things that are happening in this film are humorous, and I thought that when I watched it for the first time like 9 years ago. So still here, still thinking it's funny, and
I will say that like the way that it's structured, like it plays to sort of these beats of like humor. So I can totally see like somebody like sort of like just tuning in and just like receiving that and finding it to be funny. But like for me, it was just kind of, it was a little off. There were some things that were just off.
And
like if you stare at it for too long, which I don't think that, like, I'm not saying that you can't take a rom-com seriously and that you can't interrogate those sort of themes and like supply them out. But I'm just saying that a lot of people don't. And I think that a lot of like otherwise mediocre rom-coms skate on that.
This isn't really a rom-com.
I keep on saying that, but
No, I'm not saying you.
Right.
I feel like we're all saying it, but in general, this is a movie, I think, quote unquote, about love, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's. I think it's a kind of like how I joked earlier. It's a rom-dram where it's more about the dramatic, as the kid says, agony of being in love and how that's just awful. Which is funny because he has orange hair, so he knows a thing or two about being in agony.
Oh my god!
I wanted to say, I thought Thomas Brody Sangster was the most delightful part of this movie.
There is nothing wrong with his performance. I will give credit to him as a child actor and knowing how to be precocious. Yeah. I mean, I'm stopping there.
Yeah.
No, I mean, going back to a lot of my thoughts on early films that I previously have quite enjoyed, and now, as time has gone on, have conflicted feelings about, and this is definitely one of them, because, again, I sit down, I watch this, I still think a lot of these characters are interesting. I still think this film is quite funny. I think almost every scene that happens in this film, not every scene, but a lot of scenes that happen throughout this film have things in them that are very well done in terms of their humor. I like the idea of the kids' play having all of these really sort of random animals be characters during the nativity, and the fact that they have to sit with him, and Emma Thompson runs to her child and says, "Oh, my little lobster." I don't know. Just found that was adorable. And watch a lot of films that I loved when I was younger, and I feel like years later you watch them and you're like, this is not the same thing that I remember. I watched Home Alone for the first time in a while, like about a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago. Yeah, and oh boy, that film has not aged well at all. The idea that there's this little psychopath running around just terrorizing these neighborhood people who are just wanting to steal some ornaments is a little weird. But then you have the entire storyline that's happening in this very, troubled young white man from $1 million neighborhood, and it's just a whole thing. And yet, when that movie came out in the early '90s, people thought it was absolutely hysterical. Any film that's really filled with humor from the mid to late 90s to early 2000s, if I go back and watch now, I don't want to say it's painful, but at the same time, it is just uncomfortable. I mean, I watched the first American Pie probably for 45 minutes a while ago, and oh my goodness, it is just not something that you would see in this day and age. And so, yeah, I guess I am conflicted on that because, again, as I mentioned, I very much agree with a lot of what everybody else around this table is saying. I'm not a female, so I don't really feel like I have the same feelings as you do, Anna, when it comes to that, even though I can sense them. And hearing everything that Nick and Tucson outlined is obviously, Nick is very much prepared for this.
Oh, yeah.
And he was ready, and I'm just sitting here like, I think this is fun. So, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say whether you watch a film years after that you remember you used to really like, and it's not the same. Does that mean that you should cease to like it anymore? And no. I don't necessarily know what the answer is to that.
More of just like negotiating what it where does this film sit for you right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree with Tucson.
Right.
Like, I don't think you should stop liking it if you didn't.
But here's the thing, though, and I'm not going to stop liking it because I still did think this was good.
Right.
Yes.
But I feel like a lot of my emotions surrounding this film are because when I watched this for the first time 10 years ago, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, said she loves this movie and we should watch this. And I remember watching it and enjoying a lot of the silly, I thought, storylines that are going on. And now I have that emotion that's always going to be in my brain.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And watching this and critically thinking about everything that is transpiring throughout this film.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, when it is broken down story by story, as Nicholas has wonderfully done for us, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. I mean, and some of the things I thought that at the time were really stupid. Like, I've always thought that Colin and I'm going to go to Wisconsin and find girls that like English. Ha ha ha. I was like, I don't think that is how that works, but that's all right. But I actually think Hugh Grant's storyline is pretty good, aside from some of the silliness that happens with him being prime minister and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hugh Grant sells it very well. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll admit with that. Mm-hmm. And actually, I had put... So while we were watching this, I was ranking the storyline, and I had put Hugh Grant at number 4, and almost as one of the storylines I liked, until I got to the scene that I had forgotten about, which is the fact that he fired her.
Yeah.
I had remembered in my head that maybe she quit, and then he had to go fight for her. But the fact that he was like, can we redistribute her? And then she doesn't have anything to say about that whatsoever. I'm not saying she would have known, but still, once again, women are not allowed to be privy to a man's decision.
So, that totally reminds me of something. So,
I hope nothing that hits close to home. Okay, good.
There was an episode of Say Yes to the Dress.
Oh.
Do you have Anna's mic?
No. You know what, though? I will say, I think that if we were ever going to have an episode where we talk about Say Yes to the Dress, this is the right one.
Yeah. Okay. So what's going on at
in the world of Say Yes to the Dress?
This needs to be addressed.
To those not familiar, every episode of Say Yes to the Dress, it's the process of a woman looking for her wedding dress, but then there's also clips of like how she met her fiance.
Oh.
One woman, I swear, I don't know why I remember this. She got a job at like a real estate company, and then she was like, "Oh, my boss fired me so he could date me, and now we're engaged. And it just reminded me of what you just said. But
It's so romantic.
it's isn't that so bizarre? And
You know, when I watch Say Yes to the Dress, all I can think is, love actually is all around.
and then it's just so
When the Twin Towers were hit.
Like that's not far off from what is actually
I don't know
said
if it's
in
like because it's a British thing, like because it didn't happen to them, therefore they just thought that was extremely cavalier and casual to say, and it was cool, whatever.
and that the U.S. and UK are allies, so they're like, hey, this would be a totally nonchalant and normal thing to mention.
But they were right, because technically this was a huge hit, so it's not like they misread the room. People wanted to be reminded of 9/11 5 weeks before Christmas. Anyway.
And I know this is your least favorite, but the storyline of Colin has a mixture of, in terms of like plotline setup, it has a mixture of self-awareness, because Colin has this friend that's like, you're an idiot, why are you doing this? This is the dumbest thing in the world. And then also,
don't listen to him.
Not super uncommon for women to still be like, I just like British guys because of their accent.
Yeah, I would actually say that while I put it as my least favorite, it's mostly just because I think it's just there and it gives me nothing. Whether it's like,
Exactly.
I don't laugh at it, I don't whatever. But it is far from actually being offensive compared to actual storylines that are taking place.
It is just so ridiculous.
yeah.
But even watching that, having an American friend who married a British man, I'm just like, oh, well, I mean, I guess maybe that's not too far from reality.
Why people in Wisconsin, not normal, why I would say your average citizen are dressing up as prostitutes, I don't know.
It's
That's
funny to
pretty
what...
much.
Richard
When I first saw
Curtis-
this movie, I thought that's what that scene was coded as. Like, that he was, like, didn't realize that these women were only interested.
Okay.
I thought
that actually would make sense.
Right.
That would,
And then, like, even if he paid for it, like, that, like, without sex shaming, like, that would have been actually good, because it's like, you know what? He deserves a break. They got money. Like, like, this is all consensual, and this is not that baffling. But no, it's just that, anyway.
Yeah, it is a little weird that the first girl that he meets at the bar is wearing like super
parka?
nothing with a parka on the outside.
And it's weird that she's got the hood up, and then when she takes the hood off, it's like a reveal, but it's a reveal of nothing.
I honestly felt like when they show her at first, like it's Georgie she just got away from Pennywise.
Hiya, Georgie.
That would have been a better storyline for this.
Yeah.
What was the name of the British guy who went to Wisconsin?
Colin.
Colin. It's
Colin,
like,
the
hey,
sex
Colin.
god.
It's like,
Yeah, sex god, sure.
there's American girls down here. It's like, oh my god.
You'll fuck too.
Yeah, that is definitely weird, because in addition to this,
Jesus Christ.
in addition to this interesting notion that American girls love British guys and he can go anywhere, and he just picks somewhere on the map. Also, at the same time, we need to shame all women from the United Kingdom, as they're all stuck up. Mm-hmm. And they won't sleep with him.
The self-awareness is that the problem was just him. So,
But why is he, if he is the problem, why was that not a problem in America?
yeah. See?
So the self-awareness falls flat too. Because he's actually validated in everything he believes.
Yeah. That's the trouble with that, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. That's a man.
It is a man.
Man.
Well, that's why he got everything he wanted.
Oh man. I have a headache. I can't. There's no. What is okay? What
Also, the little kid in the limo or whatever when they're driving to the school dance.
The octopus, I
And
think?
and he's like, "We're here," and he gets up. That's how Tucson exits a car too. or a movie when it's over
Always sitting
and the
between
credits
two other people.
and the credits just start.
yeah.
Tucson is a bolter.
Yeah, I'm a bolter. I am a bolter. Or if I'm just not a fan of a film, I just bolt.
Even if you are,
Yeah, no,
That's not true.
No, you definitely.
That's not true.
You do this like stand up and then look back, and then look forward, and then you're out.
and
I
occasionally,
mean, you wait for us. It's not like you go to your car, but you get out of the theater.
and occasionally you will say something like, "You guys ready?" Something like that.
Or in the case of the last viewing. So, I loved that. You should keep doing it.
What was that from?
Midsummer.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was the movie of our Christmas season today because we did a gift exchange and everybody got a copy.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's fun.
That was a good film.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. Different look on women in that one than this one.
Yeah.
I don't got the brain space
Oh
to
my
unpack that
God.
right now.
Richard. Okay, I was reading in IMDB trivia, of
Richard
course,
Dawson
for
loved women.
for Love Actually.
Sorry.
Richard Curtis apparently got cheated on at one point in his life, and so
It makes sense because he does not like women.
exactly. And apparently, what was classified under a director trademark, which is bizarre, is that there's always a character in his movies named after the guy his girlfriend left him for.
Oh,
And then also, Ari Aster wrote Midsummer after he got cheated on too. Or no, it was after the
No,
end
the
of a
breakup.
relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
okay.
breakup movie.
Breakup, yeah,
That
okay.
is,
My mistake.
Terrifyingly.
The Richard
that bad?
Curtis
Vindictive.
thing, though,
Yeah,
I
that's-
definitely think
I don't like that.
professionals
either.
should psychoanalyze that.
Shouldn't they?
No, yeah, they
Yeah,
should.
they should.
That's not healthy, but it explains Love Actually.
Yeah.
To some degree, maybe it explains Four Weddings on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
So
Oy, oy, oy. Oy. You want to move to final ratings?
Tucson's always trying to get out.
No, I just don't know what else to say about this film.
I didn't like how Bill Nighy was acting in this film. I just didn't like his character.
Oh, you didn't like his
Yeah.
acting or his character?
Probably just both.
Yeah.
I thought he was super annoying.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Also, I thought Andrew Lincoln just wasn't that good. But he didn't really do a whole lot also.
Well, he's not very good at videography.
Maybe him without the beard and the southern accent, it just like...
Yeah,
he's too blah as just a normal
He definitely
person.
he definitely looks like Patrick Dempsey in Enchanted in this movie. He's just this, or he kind of looks like that guy that Alicia Silverstone is obsessed with in Clueless.
Paul Rudd?
No.
The other guy.
No.
The guy that she's actually in love with. Yeah.
Yes,
The one she falls off the bed when they're about to have sex.
that sounds right.
Yes.
Not literally.
Yes.
but
No,
yeah.
this guy just is, very clean shaven, very white, and
He's like Ryan Philippe in this.
he's better than Ryan Philippe. Come on,
No,
What?
he
Ryan
is.
Philippe is not a good actor.
Cruel Intentions.
That was...
Okay,
MacGruber.
Everyone was good in Cruel Intentions. That's not exactly fair.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Final ratings.
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to kick this off.
Thanks, Nick.
Boy, it's like, how do you assign a grade to something like cancer? It's just, I would give this a half star out of 5. It is not good. It is not funny. It is not cute. It is not romantic. It is not very nice. And frankly, the other thing too is that I think it failed as a Christmas movie too, because it's happening all around, but like wear the Christmas lights. Like, I know there's, but like, use them in your actual light. You know what I mean? Like, use this mise en scène to your advantage. Film in this winter wonderland. Don't give us Attack of the Clones style weird backdrops when you're sitting on a bridge and it's a fake, whatever background. Yeah. Also, it's a Christmas movie that skips over Christmas.
Yeah.
Literally, it's 5 weeks till Christmas, 4 weeks till Christmas, 3, 2, and it's 24 hours till Christmas, 1 month later. Like, no.
Yeah.
Don't bullshit me like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a half star out of 5 for this guy.
Yeah. I'm not far off from Nick. I also do not think this is a very nice film. It's not a very romantic film, nor is it particularly comedic. Well, I guess it's comedic in sort of like a dark, insensitive, like tone deaf sort of way. That's just where I'm coming from. But yeah, I'm gonna give this a 1 out of 5. Also, like you just reminded me of something that also kind of like weirded me out about this film. I don't know, maybe it's just me, like the sort of design nerd, topography nerd. The font for the sort of title cards for like every
It's
single.
aggressive.
It's aggressive. It's aggressive, and it looks like something out of a horror film. It looks like
because they're always red, like literally
Yeah.
bleeding,
Yeah.
white bleeding into red.
yeah, and
Yes.
it looks like something out of Saw, and I guess that sort of also primed me for like, okay, so maybe there's a heel twist here. I don't know, like. It seems kind of odd for there to be sort of like a horror slasher romantic comedy Christmas film to be a cult classic, but I don't know anything about this film. And you know what? Like Nick has pulled the rug underneath my feet so many times in the past. With
This
some
was
of the,
not my
with,
doing.
With some of the films that we've watched, like I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna follow this journey wherever it goes. Let's see. We did watch that one Christmas film. You Better Watch Out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Great movie.
yeah, it's a great movie. So that kind of like
Uncomfortable movie.
yeah, but it's also a good surprising horror film that's set in Christmas. So
Sure is.
yeah. Yeah, I'm going to give this a 1 out of 5.
All right. Well, I think my rating here is 2.5 out of 5. The things that I did not like, unfortunately, overtook the things that I did like. Things that I did like I mentioned before, I thought Thomas Brodie Sangster was adorable and delightful. Certainly not an annoying child actor, which, I mean, I think it's hard-pressed to find films that feature children and they're not just grinding at your gears. I thought the little moments of humor were cute. But as previously discussed, certain things just like really did unfortunately not age well, and there are tons of other films from this era and even before that didn't run into these problems. So unfortunately, that is my 2.5 stars. But I am happy that I finally saw this movie because I understand it's been very well known for quite some time. So I'm glad I added it to my list of viewings. So 2.5.
I am glad to have watched it, if only to have watched it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All the eyes turned to me. That's great.
Before you start,
Yeah.
can I say one thing?
Sure.
One thing I forgot to say in my closing comments, and because I'm reminded of it because of recently. In my opinion, a better version of this is Nancy Meyer's The Holiday, which also takes disparate story strands and ruminates around Christmas time, in which people who are unlucky in love, all of them, however, find inner strength within to solve their own problems and actually better themselves instead of either not being able to do that because they're a woman or being able to do that because they're doing it at the expense of women. Anyway.
I co-sign that movie is very good.
I've only seen it once, but
It's not like a great movie by any means, but like where this movie thinks it's at is what I would consider that to be as far as like palatable cheese. So
So I give this film a 3 out of 5. I previously have rated this higher than that, even. But as mentioned, I feel like it's impossible to ignore a lot of what is going on here, and making me question some of that too, and also question some of my thoughts on this beforehand when I previously have watched this, and was I
misogynistic? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's who can tell.
Yep. Thanks for that.
Sorry.
What the fuck, man? Okay.
You laugh at that, but kind of.
Well, to be fair, all men inherently are. I mean, in the society we live in, we are all on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
you're good. You're a good person.
Am I?
You're a good man.
Charlie Brown.
I'm being genuine.
Okay.
Also, don't let your wife listen to this episode. Not because I think you should have power over your wife in any respect.
Oh,
We don't want to.
But
we don't,
I want her to still like me.
Yeah.
Oh.
And if she likes this film, then by golly,
I want her to like this movie. I want anyone to like any movie that they want to like. But your wife is actually a wonderful person, and I don't want her to never talk to me again.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you'd be good either way. But, yes. So anyways, I do question some of what I was thinking when I was really enjoying. But as I mentioned previously, I feel like I was watching this in a bit of a different headspace when I've watched this previously, in terms of wanting to like it and wanting to enjoy it and wanting to laugh along with this film. And maybe in a lot of cases that wasn't right. But at the same time, I think there are a lot of parts of this film that I still do find humorous, even with all of the problems that I would definitely say are evident here, in terms of the way this film treats women, the way this film treats anyone who weighs more than 90 pounds.
Oh, Lord.
And also, too, just the way this film portrays people is that this is how people are, and this is what you would assume that they would be.
Also, black people are second-class characters in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Yes.
How dare Chiwetel Ejiofor be treated that way?
Yeah. What did he do? Nothing. What did
Nothing.
the Colin the Sex God's friend do?
Get
Was
rewarded
he
with
the
Denise
same
Richards.
guy, or were we just being racist?
No, I'm pretty sure it's the
they're
same
not
person.
the same guy. Yeah.
They're
Not Chiwetel.
Chiwetel.
I'm talking the Colin's friend and the guy who worked on the movie set.
Yeah,
You're pretty sure?
I-
Oh, it is them.
Yeah.
Because in the airport, it kind of confirms because he talks to both. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Colin and which is the
it's
only-
him. I mean, it looks like the exact same. He even has the same wardrobe, pretty much. So.
Yeah, that's true. All right,
Yeah.
never mind.
So, still going to stick with 3 out of 5 for this, because I do think there are parts of this that are quite enjoyable. And I do think, as Nick was saying, Emma Thompson's performance in that storyline is actually pretty good. I do still like Hugh Grant's storyline, and I do actually kind of like Colin Firth's storyline, even if him deciding that he likes her because of the tramp stamp thing is pretty gross. But the idea of him attempting to learn her language and speak to her and learn how to wanting to be more like her instead of wanting her to be more like him is pretty excellent. So that
But
part
it's revealed that she was doing the same thing.
okay.
I feel like that's kind of an undercut. Like, if he had just made the effort and she was just kind of like, oh, wow, that's so thoughtful. But she has to be as in love with him and doing the same amount of effort. Otherwise, I feel like it's this weird dynamic of, like, a guy shouldn't have to put in more effort than the girl.
Okay.
Anyway,
I
so we have a lot of ratings all across the spectrum.
Well,
yeah, 3 out of 5 for me.
Oh.
And I will say, just on that front, I actually think it's okay that they both want to learn each other's language. So, yeah. Oh, boy. So I'm sure some of our listeners have viewpoints on this film, and I'd love to hear them, and I think we'd all love to hear them, actually.
That was, you know what? I wasn't expecting that, and yeah, that was good.
Okay.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very generous.
Yeah, I mean, it hit me out of nowhere. I'm just like, you know what? I'll allow it. That's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on our next episode, if anybody does have any thoughts on it, as I mentioned, always send them. Send them. Oh my. Send them to us at filmtankshow@gmail.com. You can also find our episodes, if you'd like to listen to any other episode that we have, on filmtankshow.com. And you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, a lot of other places where podcasts can be found this day and age, which is quite a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up on episode 213, myself, Nick, and Toussaint are going to spend a little time talking about the new Star Wars film, Rise of Skywalker. And we'll see. We'll see. We've done the first 2 episodes in the trilogy. Our first year, the end of the year, was an episode on Force Awakens, and we did The Last Jedi. Yeah. And we'll bring a close to the trilogy and talk about it coming up on our next episode.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'm getting heart palpitations just thinking about it.
Oh. Yeah. Tune in next week.
I was going to say, there is still a chance that at some point, and he's come around a little bit, actually, but there's a chance that Nick can become a Star Wars fan at some point.
I don't think so.
You know what? We would have said that a couple of years ago about Marvel and comic books and video games.
Marvel haven't come.
And
what do you mean? And video games? I've played video games since I was
but
5.
But the thing is like they weren't like.
I don't talk about video games.
Exactly.
I don't really care about video games.
Yeah, exactly. But
there is
you're far more involved with them now than you were before.
I will pull on threads as I see fit, but the thing is, I just doubt Star Wars has anything left to offer that it hasn't already offered. Possibly. And it seems like the other thing is Star Wars has a clear trajectory. You take something like comics, that's 90 years worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's old issues or it's current storylines or it's adaptations or, you know what I mean? Like, in my opinion, half the battle for that kind of stuff is just finding your entry point, not finding the right one, but the one that works for you.
Right.
And for me, it was watching the DC straight-to-DVD animated Batman movies, which were these nice kind of concise adaptations of beloved stories and storylines, which then got me to go back and read them, and then therefore expand, how I interact with that. Star Wars doesn't have that much in its canon. I mean, I know it's got things like books and whatnot,
but a lot of that's been wiped out since.
And I watched the Star Wars movies when I was a child, so it's not like I didn't grow up. It's Batman I didn't grow up with. I had a friend who
I was also thinking of Godzilla, but you also just picked that up here recently. So.
True. That's the thing I never grew up with. So
yeah.
I feel like there's always a way for me to get back or to get into something if I never truly gave it a shot. But I feel like I've given Star Wars, and I don't hate it, but all that I have to give to it. But I do love Godzilla now. Godzilla's great.
Except for the Matthew Broderick film.
Yeah, I didn't finish that. Which is too bad because I rented it.
Okay.
So I paid money for it, and I didn't even get to log in on Letterboxd because I'm a completist.
Yeah. Someday you'll probably watch it.
Probably. I'll probably buy it. That's kind of how I roll.
Anna, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for welcoming me back. It was a grand old time, as it always is.
Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome.
We always really enjoy having you here, so thank you very much for joining us. And from myself, Anna, Toussaint, and Nick, thank you very much to everyone out there for listening to this episode. Catch up with you next time here on Film Tank.
I feel it in my fingers.